They warned the village never to follow sounds in the forest at night. But when a child hears her dog screaming, she doesn't listen to warnings. Through the thick, swirling white, a 13-year-old girl named Emma ran. She was screaming a name, a single word lost to the howling wind. "Max! Max!" Her breath plumed in the frigid air, and tears froze into icy tracks on her pale cheeks. The forest itself felt alive, its ancient, skeletal trees like silent observers, their branches reaching down like gnarled fingers. It was watching her. She could feel it. Distant, sibilant whispers seemed to chase her, clinging to the edge of hearing, a sound that slithered just beneath the roar of the wind. She kept running, fueled by a desperate hope that felt colder than the snow soaking through her boots. Then she saw it. A massive, dark silhouette clawing its way into the sky from the crest of a hill. An ancient, ruined castle. Its broken windows gaped like empty black eye sockets, staring out into the storm. A low, unnatural growl drifted down from the structure, carried on the wind, a sound that vibrated deep in her bones. And mixed with that growl, faint but unmistakable, was a bark. It sounded like Max. It was coming from inside the castle. She pushed forward, her small body fighting against the wind and the rising snowdrifts, drawn toward the monstrous shadow on the hill. Images flashed through her mind, the worried faces of the villagers, their voices low and hushed around the tavern fireplace. They spoke of the castle in whispers, their words weaving legends of terror. People disappearing into the woods, never to be seen again. Strange lights in the castle windows on moonless nights, and always the same chilling detail. Red eyes, watching from the dark. Souls trapped within the stone, their screams absorbed by the walls, echoing for eternity. These were the stories she'd grown up with, the ghost tales meant to keep children from wandering too far. Now she was living one. Emma reached the foot of the hill and stood before a towering iron gate, twisted and rusted by centuries of neglect. As she hesitated, a deafening screech ripped through the air. The gate swung inward, opening by itself, an invitation into the darkness. In that same instant, the forest behind her fell utterly silent. The wind died. The whispers vanished. The world held its breath. From the swirling snow at the edge of the trees, 3 enormous shapes emerged. Shadow wolves, their forms indistinct, their fur the color of midnight. They moved with a predatory grace that was both beautiful and terrifying. Their eyes glowed with a faint, hellish red light. They weren't looking at her. Their focus was on a small rabbit, frozen in fear a few yards away. The hunt was swift, silent, and brutal, a flurry of black motion, and it was over. Then, as quickly as they had appeared, the wolves dissolved back into the snow, their red eyes the last thing to fade. Emma was pressed against a tree, her hand clamped over her mouth, stifling a scream. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drum in the sudden, crushing silence. The castle door stood open. She had to go in. Forcing her trembling legs to move, she pushed the heavy oak door and stepped into the maw of the castle. Inside, the silence was absolute. It was a physical presence, pressing in on her, so heavy it felt like she was underwater. The air was thick with dust, frozen in the shafts of grey light that pierced the gloom. She was in a massive hall, its stone walls cracked and weeping with damp. Above her, hovering just off the ground, were dozens of floating, faceless spirits. They drifted aimlessly, their forms translucent, their silent mouths open in eternal screams. They began to whisper, a chorus of voices in a language she didn't understand but felt in her soul, a language of sorrow and pain. The floorboards creaked beneath her feet, the sound unnaturally loud in the spectral quiet, and with that single sound, everything stopped. The whispers ceased, the spirits froze, and one by one, every torch, every candle in the hall extinguished, plunging her into total, suffocating darkness. For a moment there was nothing, no sound, no light, just the frantic beat of her own heart. Then a single pair of red glowing eyes opened in the blackness. Then another, and another, dozens, hundreds. They appeared all around her, suspended in the void, a constellation of burning embers in an infinite night. Shadowy entities began to take form around the eyes, their bodies shifting like smoke and bone, crawling from the walls and the floor. They surrounded her, a silent, encroaching army of nightmares. A demonic voice, cold as the grave, whispered her name. Emma. Suddenly, a crash of breaking glass shattered the tension. Max, her beautiful, loyal golden retriever, launched himself through a broken window. He landed between Emma and the encroaching shadows, his body low, his lips curled back in a ferocious snarl. He was a beacon of warmth and life in a world of cold death, growling fiercely at the legion of red eyes. Miles away in the warm light of the village, panic had taken hold. Emma's parents, their faces etched with terror, pointed frantically at a map. The police chief followed their fingers, his own expression grim. A hidden GPS tracker, a tiny device her mother had sewn into the lining of Emma S.'s shoe just in case, was blinking. A single pulsing dot. At the castle. Headlights cut through the snowstorm as police vehicles skidded to a halt before the iron gates. They moved in fast, weapons raised. Inside, they found the nightmare. The main hall was a living shadow, the walls and ceiling crawling with red eyes that watched their every move. The officers' shouts were swallowed by the oppressive silence. Their weapons were useless against these things. The shadows slithered across the ceiling, coalescing into larger, more monstrous forms. The commanding officer, his face pale in the wavering beam of his flashlight, saw Emma and Max huddled in the center of the swirling chaos. "Get them out, now!" he screamed. Two officers rushed in, grabbing Emma, pulling her and a still snarling Max back towards the entrance. As the shadow entities surged forward, a tide of darkness rushing the doorway, the remaining officers threw flash grenades and explosive charges deep into the hall. The world erupted in a blinding flash and a deafening roar. The ancient castle groaned, shuddered, and then collapsed in on itself with violent finality. Demonic screams echoed from within as stone, fire, and darkness consumed everything, leaving only a smoking crater on the hill. Peace returned to the village. A quiet, fragile peace. Snow fell softly now, blanketing the world in a pristine white. Inside her house, Emma slept safely in her bed. Max curled on the rug by the fireplace, his tail twitching in a dream. Outside, the forest was still. Back at the ruins where the castle once stood, a single, ancient tree remained untouched by the blast. It was twisted and black, a sentinel against the snow. On its highest branch, a tall, slender figure sat, a being made of pure shadow. Its eyes burned with a bright, intense red, staring out across the forest, fixed on the distant lights of the village, fixed on Emma's house. A deep, inhuman scream, filled with ages of loss and a promise of retribution, ripped through the silent forest. Revenge? The screen fades to black, but the image of those burning red eyes remains, slowly fading into the darkness as whispers echo, just on the edge of hearing. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more chapters from the shadows.